everybody. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of The Full Spectrum. I'm your host, Bill Simonera. So some background on myself, because I haven't given it yet throughout the few episodes that we've done. I was a political science major at Temple University. I currently work in real estate. I was vice president of Delaware County Young Democrats and a committeeman ward leader for the Marple Newtown Democratic Party. So always had a strong interest in civics and government and political issues. Was always looking for an outlet for it, or seeing what I can do in it. And I got this idea. And willing to help me along this journey was Frank Campanell. He's joining us tonight. Frank, why don't you let everybody know what you're all about?
Yeah, definitely. So, I am a little crazy, a little different, but I mean, I would say I grew up on a horse farm, and then I moved to Ocean City, Jersey when I was around 6, and then I moved to North Philadelphia to go to college at Temple University, and that was my first experience with the idea of race when I looked in the mirror and noticed my race, and then I looked around my neighborhood and I noticed the issues of inequality, inequity. Race, gender, poverty. These things were real things because they affected me directly. And I very quickly began to see that change and problems and all these things we read about, they only matter if they matter to you. And this work is relational. And the work that I do is I work for a prison education program. I go in and out of prisons all over the place with college students and community members to have intergroup dialogues where two people come together to have conversations across difference as equals. And I also work with kids, young men and women that are involved in the criminal justice, juvenile justice system. And I've always been incredibly engaged politically, incredibly engaged on the ground with issues of social justice. And I won't go down that list. I mean, it's just something that's really important. And as Bill and I have been talking about this stuff for years, like we've just been looking for ways to, create spaces for people to get real with each other and kind of move the needle forward instead of just kind of hating everything. But, I know Bill's going to jump right in.
Yeah, that is, so my philosophy has always been that we do great things in this country when we work together. When we find compromise. The greatest errors in our country's history was when we all came together, found a compromise, and figured out how to move forward together. And we've lost that. In the polarization that's become the United States, you just have factions battling each other and everybody loses. And, you can blame the media all you want and everything, but in the end, it's just kind of come down to a conditioned attitude in people now is it's us versus them rather than, or me versus you rather than us, And that's a mindset we need to get back to is togetherness. And it pains me to watch a lot of political discourse because it's just vitriolic and hate-filled, and it doesn't solve anything. And, that's what I wanted to do with this show was to change that and to get a discussion going again and make people realize that, hey, we really do have a lot more in common than we have different. And maybe we can talk together civilly. Maybe we can work together and find solutions, across common ground. Because, the conservative solution, that's not going to be the only thing that happens. The liberal solution, that's not going to be the only thing that happens. We need to find a way to compromise and figure out how to move forward with a little bit from both sides. So basically, about 6 months ago, in the throes of the election.
Let me jump just in real quick. So
Yeah.
For anybody listening or watching this thing, the purpose of this conversation, something Bill and I have talked about, is just giving people context to what the hell this is, why it's happening, why Bill wanted to roll it out, and that this is an organic process and that it can change and evolve. But really, I think it's important, Bill, you kind of throw your mission out there, and that's kind of the conversation we're having.
Yeah, for me, doing this, it has jack shit to do with, the issues in a broader sense. it has everything to do with the mission behind it. Is I've watched our country basically falling into the shitter over the past, say even over the past couple of decades, and it's not particularly policy. It goes much deeper than that. It goes to attitudes that we have toward each other. It used to be in our nation's history, we could work both sides of the aisle together. We could work together to find common ground and find solutions to problems. We could talk to each other. But we've become so polarized that, on both sides of the aisle, everything devolves into vitriolic name calling. Nobody ever talks anymore. And it's just detrimental to our society. We're never going to solve any problems unless liberals and conservatives work together, because neither side's getting everything they want. It's only going to work if we both, find a solution that meets somewhere in between. And the only way that's going to happen is through conversation. And it almost looks like in this country we can't have a conversation anymore. And my whole thing with the full spectrum was to prove that it can be done, that, polar opposites on the political spectrum can have a conversation together and not kill each other. It can happen. And to, show that we have more in common than we have different. You look through the conversations in these episodes recently, you find a lot of instances where, we find common ground, where conservatives and liberals find out like, hey, we have some views in common. And I think that needs to be applied to policy and to how we move forward as a country. So that's the mission behind this. I mean, it wasn't so I could get on here and shoot the shit with people about political issues. While I enjoy doing that, it was a much broader mission that has nothing to do with the issues. It has everything to do with our society and what we need to do. So that was my whole reason for wanting to start this. And so I hope you've been enjoying it and have learned something from, maybe a different point of view you didn't think of before. So that's been my whole thing with this through this whole process. And I want to thank Frank for coming along for the ride at this point and getting his views out there. Ever since I was a kid, I could get along with people of different backgrounds and people of different views because I never really belonged to a group. I always kind of took a little bit from different groups and found somewhere in the middle. So I was never really full on into one scene, but I knew enough about that scene that I could get along with people from it. So it's kind of the same way politically. Like, I don't belong wholeheartedly to the left or the right, but I take enough from each side that I can get along with each one, even if I don't see eye to eye with them at all times. It infuriates both sides at some time, but as in the immortal words of wisdom from Popeye, I am's what I am. So, I mean that's been the whole motivation behind this. And Frank, what have you gotten out of this whole process so far?
Hey man, it's so like that's I could tell you what I got out of it. I just have a couple questions. So like boil it down, making it like accessible here. Like, so you think that this country sucks at having conversations?
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
We want to start having better conversations, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So better conversations towards what?
Toward issues that affect us and how we can solve the problems that we face. Because we have the ideas there, but we just need to be able to discuss it and form it into a plan that we can implement together. And that's the thing, you got both sides yelling at each other all the time, and mainstream media doesn't exactly help. That their whole format is, well, we need drama, so they have the talking heads yelling at each other all the time. Another piece to this was, we're going to have normal people coming on and having discussion, not some talking head in a studio in Atlanta or New York, but people who are actually affected by these things and can speak intelligently. I remember during the recession when they were talking about the concept of the staycation, and you had all these anchors at CNN who made like $500,000 a year, laughing about, people in their staycations, and it was like, fuck you, asshole. Like, you have the luxury of having that big time income, but those of us in the trenches who are gritting it out every day, like, this is the reality we face. That was just one example, but I mean, it's kind of sums up the out of touch nature of a lot of media outlets and the need for a forum like this so that real people can actually be heard and we can hear what the real pulse of our nation is on topics.
Yeah, I mean, so like that's, I mean, what it's getting to, I mean, for me is the problem. What's the overarching problem here? Is that we're othering people, and I think
Yeah.
through othering we dehumanize people, and I think every atrocity in this world has happened because of our ability to dehumanize. Whether it be the Holocaust, whether it be slavery, whether it be what's happening right now with this travel ban, we other and reduce people and put them in a box, and especially politically, that's what we're doing. And I've never seen the country as divisive as it is, and all, my love for history and all my readings around the Civil War, I think it's slightly more divided now. And, I think a lot of this, you and I talked about this before, but like, George Washington's farewell address was dedicated, most of it, to how factions would be the inevitable end of this country and the inability for
Yeah.
factions to work together, which now in this country are parties, and look at us, we're talking about it in this binary way. It's, if you're not one, you're the other, and why can't anything else exist? So, and why can't we get across this divide and just have conversations, just real people having conversations, and that's kind of what I get out of this.
Yeah.
Like, how can we just move it?
Factions are inevitable because human beings are herding animals. So, I mean, that's going to happen from time to time, but you can still, something that kind of separates us from the other beasts, as I'll put it, is our ability to think critically and to be able to work together more, So,
I would say our capacity. We choose to exercise it sometimes.
yeah, something I was thinking about while you're saying that, it kind of reminded me of it, is whenever you see a liberal group or a conservative group talk about the other side, it's always this faceless mob that they're talking about.
Yeah,
Of this stereotypical group, and they never take people individually. Whenever I hear a conservative saying, "Oh, well, these Democrats, these are theirs, blah 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 blah," I'm like, "Well, you don't know us. You don't know. I disagree with single payer health care, which pisses off liberals something awful. Like, you don't know individuals' particular views, and you're making a broad generalization." That's kind of, and liberals do the same thing. I mean, Hillary Clinton's basket of deplorables comment kind of summed up like what it is on the left. It's kind of, if you don't believe everything I believe, if you're different than me, you're evil, and I'm going to lump you in, everybody in, as this evil blob. And it's just, how did it get this way? That's what I wonder, how did it get this fucked up? And we need to do what we can, whatever is in our power to fix it. And that's what I'm hoping we can do with this.
So I mean, part of the solution here is that we can argue this in the podcast, but I'm a firm believer that we really don't have that much efficacy, as an individual to affect political change.
Oh, that's horseshit. That's absolute horseshit. I'm sorry to be a dick with that statement.
Just take a step back.
Sorry, go ahead.
We can argue that another point, but I think where you can make a change is on a local level. I think on the macro level, nationally, you're never going to get somebody to represent your interests. And if we were more engaged in a community, local level, and we understood and started to think that this stuff matters to us, we would be able to see the effects kind of trickle into these overarching decision makers, trickle into, what they're doing, what they're thinking. An individual has some efficacy, but when I'm thinking, like, we don't have money, I don't agree with 90% of the things that are happening right now. They don't reflect my values, what I believe should be happening. And I've certainly, if the power is derived from the consent of the governed, I don't see a lot of those who are governed giving their consent for this shit that's happening right now. So, like, part of it's like the solutions at the end of this thing. Like, what the hell are we gonna do? What's one concrete thing we can actually fucking do to make a shift here?
One person individually may not have the efficacy, but many people together do. Well, no, but many people together do.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
best example is the civil rights movement in the United States, and what makes it arguably the greatest movement in all of history is the fact that these weren't freaking like people descended from another planet. These were ordinary people who had had enough of the bullshit and stood up for themselves, and they completely changed the country. Granted, we still have some changing we need to do. We can debate that, and I know we haven't gotten nearly to the mountaintop that Dr. King was looking for, but in this nation. But
Oh my God, come out to the
these
communities I exist. We absolutely have not. But yeah,
no, I mean, I'm being tongue in cheek with that, but like in the end, a lot of change has been made when ordinary people banded together and stepped up. And I'm not talking about, violent revolutions or any crap like that. The greatest movements have been peaceful organizing and, I mean, just people getting together in a peaceful fashion and, talking and taking action from there. And that's, no matter what you believe, you know, I wouldn't. I advocate more for liberal movements. But if you're a conservative and you have something to believe in and you want to see something happen, organize and do it. I mean that's fine with me. Just do something. And I learned from trying to be in political organizations that maybe that government path or that official path isn't for me, but maybe this is the role I could play to make it happen. But whatever your role is, whatever your beliefs are, whatever, just do something is part of my belief on it.
and get uncomfortable because
Yeah.
that's how you grow.
Yeah, exactly. Be able to
No
confront.
matter what no matter what we all think. Like when we're having these conversations, like don't get it twisted. Like we other people all the time we dehumanize them. So how can we break that cycle and go out of our way to get uncomfortable and have those conversations? And that's when we can start to understand each other. That's when we can start working together.
Pretty
You're never
much,
going to be
yeah.
able to work together unless we can start humanizing each other. And to do that, you have to be able to listen, be willing to engage, want to not like just jump down somebody's throat. It's just these are the kind of things that need to happen.
And
Tough
be able
conversation.
to hear shit that you aren't going to agree with that makes you uncomfortable, and being able to deal with that. I think hiding yourself from that doesn't prepare you for the actual world at all. Like just putting yourself in a bubble. You're not going to be prepared for when you have to deal with the unpleasant things in life. So I think that's something that we do to a lot of younger generations. We kind of shield them too much. And you talked about going to temple. I didn't know jack shit about what a lot of people went through. I mean, the closest I came was driving through West Philly on my way down to like Center City from Delco, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. I should probably modify that. Until I went to college in North Philly, and I finally got to take a look close up, and it was eye opening, and it was something just where I grew up sheltered me from, and you have to be able to see the things in the world that are unpleasant. You have to be able to confront them, because if you don't even acknowledge that they exist, there's no way we can do anything to make them better. So that was something that I thought about when you were talking about Temple University earlier, Frank.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I mean, this is kind of conversation that could keep happening too, like moving forward. But like that's just so people get a sense. This is what it's about. Like let's start figuring it out.
Yeah, and absolutely, if anybody, you have a thought on anything you hear, put it in the comments, because we want to hear from you. That's the whole point of this, is to start a conversation. So we want to hear what you have to say, and you know what? I read it. If you make a comment, I'm going to read it. And if you make a thoughtful comment, yeah, maybe you'd be somebody who we should have on the show. I might reach out to you for that. I'm looking for people who want to have a conversation, and you know what? If you're If you look like you're good for it, then you know what? Maybe we talk about having you come on. That's my thought on it. But what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, no, I mean that's the whole point here. It's
Yeah.
just people getting together, people that give a shit coming together and having this conversation. So I think people that are engaged, we should bring them on. You know? Like if you want to, that's something you want to get involved and give feedback too. You know, like, dude, I mean, you don't need to give me the feedback sandwich. I need the real feedback.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
if
if you
so,
want to go on and be like, "Hey, Bill's a fucking asshole,"
yeah,
like, fine. Like, I don't give a shit. Go ahead. But like,
tell me
we need
why.
honest, unfiltered. Yes, exactly. Explain yourself.
Yeah, you can call me a prick. I know why I'm a prick. I want to know why you think I'm a prick, so
See
I
if
can
we're on the
address
same
that.
page. Like,
So yeah, but and that's the thing too. I think it's important to if just get involved in that. This is part of it too. If you don't like the format, you don't like the structure, the model, give some feedback. It's like this is something like I want to watch something that I want to watch, like, and I want to be invested in. I'm invested in certain things, So give us feedback so we can do this in a way that people want to watch it. People want to
yeah,
get engaged.
yeah, and and tell us, what's affecting you. Like that's the thing. Like coming up with topics, like I talk about, issues that are prevalent, and they affect everybody who's on. But we want to hear from people, just people who are out there watching. What's affecting you right now? What
Hmm.
good or bad? Like what's going on? Like what in the world? What issues? What policies? Anything that's affecting, and what effect is it having on you? Because that's part of the point of this, is to get people's voice out there, so they can let the world know what's going on for real people in the world. And we want to hear from you on that front too. And we'll talk about it. Like that's it's definitely if I find out the particular issue is having X effect on a lot of people, then you know what? Maybe it's something we ought to discuss in an episode. So we want to hear from you. Is the long and the short of it. Is just tell us, what's going on with you and what you think, because
Yeah,
that's the
Bill
whole point of
does.
this.
I don't want to hear from anybody. You can go fuck yourself. No, I'm kidding. Just, it's the whole point. I want to
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, Frank, any that tangent out of the way, tonight I want to talk about something that's going to affect a lot of people, which is the draconian and cruel budget of Donald J. Trump and what he's proposing for our nation. If you're a defense contractor, it's awesome though. I mean, you're going to do well. But if you're anybody else, there's some stuff in here that's going to hurt you real bad. Frank, I assume you got to take a look at the effect, what is going to be affected by this. What are your initial thoughts on it?
I I mean, my first thought is just like I think the idea that he was proposing throughout the election and throughout his first, like whatever first week or two about this budget was just like incredibly ambitious undertaking, and I didn't quite know what it would look like. Dude, I think what he said he was going to do a million times isn't aligned with what's actually happening, and it was an ambitious undertaking. But what it looks like to me is just you know, let's hack away everything outside of something that's concrete around defense. Like, and I don't, I, it seems like to me like he's getting away. He wants to keep Medicare, and he wants to up military spending. That those two things right there, and then around some of the health stuff we're doing, it's like 99% of the budget. So what? Where are you chopping? And it seems to me he's chopping everything.
He's ch-
Um,
he's chopping everything while not taking a look at the what really needs to be cut, whether to how to effectively balance the budget and how to make effective cuts. It's more like let's trim some of the fat while not attacking the meat of the issue. And
well, yeah, yeah. and this is the whole he's the antithesis of what he said he was going to be, like somebody that was going to break everything down, deconstruct. Let's start thinking about how we can run things more effectively and efficiently. The problem with military spending, we can go in that direction. I don't want to go there, that tangent just yet, but it's like I don't understand how this is feasible and why he's doing what he's doing and how this is going to impact us on the ground, because the only way to address the issues that he's so afraid of, which is like crime, issues of like inequality that affects his bottom line, right? You have to invest heavily into the social sciences, and all of the programs that are going to be getting cut are the things that are ran incredibly ineffectively now, as far as I'm concerned, but the things that are actually on the ground making a difference, so I don't, and just when I see people arguing about cutting the arts, I'm like, can we just fucking get through this art? Why would anybody do that? I don't like, why is it even on the table to cut the arts?
I don't know. It's kind of, it's just something a guy like him's not going to see the value in, because he's not a well-rounded person. So why would he see the value in making other well-rounded people? His basic thing is, it's kind of like the budget just kind of screams "fuck you." Like, that's kind of like what I take out of it when I read it, is it's just kind of like a go fuck yourself kind of budget. Like, let's take a look through some different things. Well, let's talk about military spending, because it's the only thing that's getting a significant increase in Trump's budget. My thought on it is the defense budget, that is pork barrel politics at its worst. All the pork that's in that section of the budget is ridiculous. I think one of the best stories was from, I think it was a few years ago, the Pentagon told Congress, they were like, we do not need any more Abrams M1 tanks. Like, you stop ordering them, stop paying for them. They're sitting in a lot collecting dust right now. And Congress was like, fuck you, you're taking all the ones that are made, because those are jobs in their districts, putting them together. But, we talk about PBS, which is nothing, like, that's more ideological. That and NPR, that's an ideological thing. That has nothing to do with the actually balancing the budget. But in the end, we're not tackling the items like pork in the defense budget that is really what's driving up the deficit. And that's a real way, cutting out that pork's a real way to balance the budget.
But what would that look like? Because I distinctly remember there were a couple things about Trump that I did like during the initial primary phase. I never would have voted for him. I didn't. But when he went around to every single one of the people that were on the panel, which was like 90 Republicans or whatever, he's like, I gave you money, I gave you money, I gave you money, I gave you money. Now he's doing the antithesis of that. He's beholden to all the special interests and all the pork and all the bullshit was from before, and then he's strategically like scaling out this idea that we need to invest in the brick and mortar military. That's not where the money needs to go. The money needs to go in the tech side, so we can actually start defending ourselves. And then we need to take a step back and look at how it's being allocated, so we can actually take care of the people that are on the ground. Because war is changing, and this whole idea we need more ships and fucking planes and all this shit. What do you? We don't fight like that. When did we not just start bombing people with fucking robots in the sky during the Obama administration? Like, why don't you take that?
2017.
Yeah.
More greater number isn't necessarily greater.
Yeah.
That's the way it's been throughout all of military history. It's not necessarily, size really doesn't matter. Those who win are the ones with the best technology. That's been true since. Even before Rome, that's been true since the Egyptians.
Why the Luftwaffe were so effective during World War II. That's why, the one good component of Vietnam that we were successful in was like our air fighting and our air prowess, because of like the technological innovation around the Air Force, the time and certain strategies. So like that's why we need to invest in, if you want to invest in the Navy, take that money, invest in one really cool ship. I don't know, that some little 14-year-old kid's going to be operating in the next 10 years. I don't understand why we're spending all this money into we're hemorrhaging money into what? Because as far as I'm concerned, like I've read all those stories around, oh, we spent like $5 million on a paperclip. I want to know exactly where the money is going because all my friends in the military always say I'm living off rations.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. You know,
so
they're not getting paid.
where the
So where's all this money going to, other than Lockheed Martin's CEO?
yeah, well, they're
Um,
not getting taken care of in the field. So, like, as far as from what I hear from my friends anyway, and what I read, but like, where the fuck is the money going exactly? And is there any oversight in that process?
I mean, you're going to be proposing $574 billion in military spending, and yet you got troops all around the world who are driving around in Humvees without armor on them. You
That's
know,
what I'm
like
saying.
what the
What
fuck?
about Kevlar?
Yeah.
What
But then we applaud how much of heroes they are and everything, but
the-
then we don't give them fucking body armor so they don't die overseas. You know, so where
what do
does
you
that
mean,
really
dude?
show? What's that?
What the politics needs martyrs so they can move the death of amazing, brilliant people that goes put their lives on the line so they can move whatever political agenda, whatever's expedient in the moment forward.
And the best
Um,
part is our draft dodger in chief is the one who's in power. He's the one who will use them as martyrs. He did this. He did it with the soldier who was killed in that disastrous Yemen raid. You know, and
yeah.
it's a man who never fought. I mean, I could see if you didn't fight because you had an actual medical problem, but he was literally a rich boy draft dodger. You know, he just at any rate. But you know the defense budget is where the real pork is, and that's getting an increase in spending of $52.3 billion. One area where I do agree that spending should increase, and that's getting an extra $4.4 billion in spending, is Veterans Affairs.
Yeah.
Because this goes back to what we're saying. I mean, these people risk their lives, they're heroes, and they come home and they don't get shit. We
But
don't take care of them.
yeah.
And you know, people will put that little ribbon on their flag that says "Support our troops," and then I'll ask them, "Would you take a tax hike so that we could provide for all our veterans?"
If
And
you
I'm
but
like,
if,
"Fuck no!" And it's like,
if
"Then
you
take that
no,
sticker off your truck, you asshole." You know,
it
like that.
doesn't matter to people directly. That's why. How many assholes drive around a big urban area and how many homeless guys do you pass on the side of the street that has literally their uniform on still? I mean, this is what's happening in our country, and it's the access to psychological care, the access to treatment, and the access to assimilating back to a world that's changed subsequent to severe trauma in a lot of cases, which is measurable now. So like the problem, I'm all for the increase there in the VA, but I want to know exactly what are we investing in? Exactly how is this being spent? Because all everything's so general. There's no
Well, and the
specific.
VA system in general needs to go. This is where I depart from a lot on the left: is end the VA and put every veteran on Medicare, and put them and cover Part B expenses too. And, you know, I mean, and that's what they have for the rest of their life. They're going to get better treatment in the private sector. You know, rather than making them wait for months to be seen by a doctor at the VA, let them go find a doctor of their choice and have Uncle Sam pick up the bill. It's the least we can do for them. But I think the VA system, I don't think it can be fixed. I think it's gotten too fucked. It was fine before we got into two wars, but it's just not able to catch up with it. So I don't know. What do you think we ought to? What do you think we ought to do for our veterans? What thoughts do you have for it? How do you think we can improve how we treat them?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with the enlistment process. Before I got into the military, I think some of the ways that we recruit need to change. But subsequent, like somebody that's getting out, I think would need access to a fair shake at participating meaningfully in the economy, and somebody who has the support at their disposal. And I'm not talking about like, here's a psychiatrist. I'm talking about high-level psychiatry and psychology at their disposal, with incentives to take advantage of it, because not everybody wants to talk to somebody. But meeting people earlier in that process, while at the same time stressing what does education look like, and how is this something that we can start resourcing and encouraging throughout the military process? Because I know,
We need to have them prepared for what they're going to do after the military, and that's something that a lot of vets aren't prepared for. Is, what's next, and so job training should be a big part of it, and making sure they transition to something. Too often, you have too many vets who come home and basically the government's like, "Thanks for your service, now go fuck yourself," and it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? And we need to try. You're talking about having them be able to engage in the economy. You're absolutely right. We need to figure out how to integrate them into the private sector once they get home, or the public sector. I mean, whatever they want to do, but we need to have them integrate back into society out of the military and make sure that they're trained and everything to do that. So I think that would be a better investment of money.
yeah, and it's not that, it's having a well articulated infrastructure for your exit. Here's a process. If you want to go in this direction, you can go in this direction. If you want to go in this direction, go in this direction. Here's what we encourage, and here's an alumni network that's going to support you throughout that process of voices directly affected by these issues, and putting resourcing behind it. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think government is so ineffective in the ways that it does almost everything. So I mean, I want to see something heavily resourced with good people. It's a lot of it is like everybody runs to the private sector because you can't maintain and retain talent in government service work, or nonprofit work, or like service work in my field. But that's a problem. How can we staff with talent and keep those good people in those positions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Just taking a look, it was funny. When Donald Trump was on the campaign trail, he said about the black community, he was like, "What the hell do they have to lose?" And looking at this budget, apparently a lot, because a lot of programs that benefit inner city black communities are getting the hatchet. For one thing, in HUD, Community Development Block Program. That's going to be cut. Funding for rental assistance. I mean, I work in real estate. I mean, I know a lot around Section 8 and other programs to assist people in finding housing. So we're just gonna, cut that out and put people on the street. LIHEAP. LIHEAP is such a valuable program and does so much to help people heat their homes in the winter, be able to have power, and that's going to be cut. So, Frank, as much as Trump talked about, wanting to be a president for everybody and caring about the American people, what does this budget say about that?
Well, I mean, the intersecting issue here is race, and I don't want to get on that tangent right now. I think it would be disingenuous given we don't have tons of time, but he's just, this is black and white. This isn't even a question. This isn't even something like, so if this is where I look at the obstacle. If I'm talking to somebody that tells me he does care about everybody, I'm like, here's a black and white, concrete way that he doesn't. Do you know how many people that are in poverty or in the lower middle class, around that threshold where you're living paycheck to paycheck? These are the things that they use that are under-resourced to begin with to just make ends meet. And then when they can't make ends meet, you engage in the alternative economy because that's the only way you're going to be able to make ends meet. That's why crime is happening. That's one overarching reason why we have that happening. This isn't reflective. But when you look at who are the people using these programs, overwhelmingly African American, black men and women, and then go down the line. I don't like using language like minority, but populations that have been oppressed traditionally in this country need access to those specific programs that are getting cut, right? And then you're looking at felony disenfranchisement. So there's no coincidence why private prisons were donated to Trump's campaign. And the Senate sending Obama order to stop the use of private prisons. The most important thing that exists. They would be sending a load of people do for them directly into private prisons. They aren't beholden to the same standard that anyone else is. Make money off literally tattling human beings.
But you can say the same in regard to the private sector education industry, and that's going to boost in Trump's. And a lot of this also, we talked about Betsy DeVos in another episode, and a lot of this with school choice, this is to benefit religious schools because you people a voucher, unless that voucher is like $1,000 a year, their kid's not going to a private school. Like that's how much those cost. They're going to go to a Catholic school. And Betsy DeVos is devoutly religious, so I think this is part of it. Part of it is to get her to be able to give a boost to religious education. But I mean, once again, we're cutting 9.2 billion from education, but we're doing the $1.4 billion increase for the private school choice programs.
And let me give you one statistic. How many people, out of the whole percentage of people that get locked up in this country, what's the percentage that you think that gets out?
50.
So eventually, because not everybody has a life sentence.
Yeah.
People that are locked up in this country, over 95% of people, over 95.
I thought you meant including like recidivism and.
Oh no. So, but the point here is, of the people that are getting out, that have been incarcerated for a longer term, that are coming out, who are already disenfranchised because it's so difficult to reintegrate, or just to integrate in the first place, into a system where you don't have access to equality in reference to voting, access to healthcare, access to, first and foremost, the jobs piece. These guys take advantage of assistance to make ends meet. Like, you want to get your own apartment, when you're on parole, you have to do X, Y, and Z. One of those is like maintain independent living at some capacity, and if you don't have a family, you take advantage of the HUD program. And then this is all resourced strategically through the DOC, the Department of Corrections, and the Bureau of Community. So many men and women that are getting out of prison depend on, the little $500 here and there to make their rent every month while they learn to assimilate, get a job, figure out how to have a bank account. What the hell? Like, this is stuff. When you look at who this is affecting, it, in an abject way, people disproportionately of color. Period. So, like, how is he? I don't know. This is the problem.
And the black community is in election, and they have not. And you're seeing long transporters because he is just everything he does is like, he's going to EPA. Environmental churches get like cash, so we have clean air, clean drinking water. That's not as important. Let's take a look at some. Let's talk about EPA a little more. What he's cutting and it. Everything wants to pull it up. You got to pick Emily up at what, 9:15?
Yeah.
You got to leave at 9:15?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's maybe go 5 minutes or so. Okay. So Trump wants to eliminate 3,200 staff positions from the EPA. That's 20% of the department. All funding to enactment of the Clean Power Plan, and discontinue funding the climate change research and international climate change programs. Who does this benefit, Frank? Who benefits from this?
Certainly not any person that breathes air on the planet, including Donald Trump. So, like, I mean, well, it's going to be like Spaceballs, like when you had Trump
wants to eliminate 3,200 staff positions from the EPA. That's 20% of the department. All funding to enactment of the Clean Power Plan, and discontinue funding the climate change research and international climate change programs. Who does this benefit, Frank? Who benefits from this?
Certainly not any person that breathes air on the planet, including Donald Trump. So, like, I mean, well, it's going to be like Spaceballs, like when you had him drinking the air out of the can, like that's, I don't know, man. I think this is one conversation where I'm more interested. I think most people, critical thinking people, would say 99% of scientists say this is a thing. And the 1% of scientists were probably hired from,
ExxonMobil, yeah.
Or a tobacco company to disprove that there's a correlation between cancer and throwing cancer in your body. Like, so the problem is, how can we have conversations with somebody that says, no, it doesn't exist. And that's it. Like, that's where I'm having trouble. Only with some issues, I can. But, like, how can we bridge that gap? You know, because
It's a good question because you do have that on the right, and I think the climate change deniers are the exemplification of that. And on the left, it's the anti-vaxxers. There are some people out there who there's no evidence in the world that you can present that will change their mind. They're conspiracy theorists. They're crazy, and they're like you can't change their minds. I remember my grandfather ran statistical research for Merck, and when that autism paper came out, linking vaccines to autism, he told the British Minister of Health he was full of shit. It's basically told him to go fuck himself because he knew his job was to prove that the drugs worked. He knew they didn't cause autism. He would have noticed that link, but there is no evidence. Even the fact that the guys admitted that they bullshitted the whole thing, that can change the anti-vaxxers' minds. It's the same way with the climate deniers. Like, there's nothing you can present to them that's going to change their mind. But those people are a very, very tiny fraction. I think most people can be presented with new evidence. And I think basically a big thing for how you deal with when you encounter somebody, like that is present them with new information that maybe they're not getting. Maybe that's the whole problem. And also it's in how you present it to them.
well, that's
Do
what I
not
was.
talk down to them like they're an idiot or something like that.
What,
You know?
yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the biggest problems I have is when I'm taking a conservative position on something, and I don't provide a caveat. I just say where I stand. I immediately, and I do this just to test. I mean, just as like to give me some context for what this person is about. I immediately feel a level of pretension, condescension, judgment, and that is the antithesis of what's going to make me receive what you want to have to say. It's not even about what you say and how you say it. It's about how a person feels as a result of what you say. So it's like if I got somebody saying the world is flat, I think you're an asshole. But at the same time, if I'm going to say you're an asshole, like you're not going to listen to me.
You're never going to be convinced that the world is not flat. It's all
It,
about in how you pitch things to people.
yeah.
And
If you're told you're wrong, it doesn't. People dig in. I mean, empirical evidence suggests it doesn't matter if you know you're wrong. If you're told you're wrong, you dig in even harder.
yeah.
So you don't. I mean, it's a better approach is to be like, yeah, man, I get where you would see that, where it's not affecting you on this side of the world. I get where you would see you don't believe in climate change because it's 90 degrees and February, but I understand your point now. But I think you just have to come from a place of like, yeah, man, I see where you could get that, man. I get where you're coming from,
Well, and that's the whole theme of othering that we were talking about earlier is you're not seeing a person for a person. The anti-vaxxers, here's the thing with them. I don't agree with them. I think you'd have to be nuts not to get your kid vaccinated, but they don't do it because they care about their children. They think that the vaccines are going to harm their children, and that's why they don't get it. And in the end, is that not an admirable quality to want
Yeah,
what's best for your children? And in the end, they may not be doing what's best for their children, but we have to remember the people behind it, and remember that it comes from a place of love. Even if we don't agree with it, we have to remember that before we approach any conversation. And it could go. I'd have to look at specific examples, and causes on the right, like the climate deniers and stuff, motivations. But that was at least an example I could give. I'm sure you can find it on the right with causes where you just have to find the human element in it, and it's there. It's just a matter of finding it and connecting it. It's basic salesman shit. I get taught this crap. It's basically finding a way to connect with people is how you're gonna pitch it to them, and it's true, and it's how you convey people. It's how you sell them on a position in a debate is finding a way to connect. So I think
yeah,
that's something we need to do, and part of that would be through talking to each other and finding out what we have in common and finding ways to connect outside of a policy level.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it comes at the core, But like, dude, gutting the EPA, like, dude, I mean, that's a problem for conservatives.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what do you think? Like, and this is Cade's territory. I mean, but for hunters out there, who do you think manages all these preserves?
Yeah,
I mean, like, what? Who do you think is coordinating the effort to protect land? And
yeah.
the rangers out there that are killing themselves, that are understaffed. I mean, who do you think's out there to help? Like, I don't. This is a big problem. I don't. I don't see. I don't know. Maybe there's a decision at the top to say whatever we did is irreversible, so why the hell not? I'd rather hear that than like
Yeah.
we're just gonna cut this arbitrarily.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to get some more details, and meanwhile, you know what? We'll close on this note and talk about this. Do you think the Republicans have the votes for the health care bill? We're recording this on Wednesday night. Okay. By the way, I should probably throw that in there if you're watching the episode. So the vote hasn't happened yet. What do you think, Frank? Do they have it?
Um, anytime I don't like postulating votes here, but I really I get the sense that they don't. I get the sense that it's not going to come out. I think there's way too many flaws in Ryan's iteration of the ACA, or what is it? The American Healthcare, the
It's
AH,
Trump. It's Trump care.
whatever the hell it is.
It's Trump
I,
care.
it's Ryan care because
Nah,
Trump's
fuck that. They threw that shit right through that shit on Obama 7 years ago. We're throwing it all on Trump's shoulders at this point.
what Trump is going to do if it goes well, it's Trump care. If it doesn't get
Yeah,
out, if he doesn't get the votes for this, it's Ryan care, and it was
yeah,
Ryan.
exactly. And then basically either way, Ryan's speakership is on the line on this because he I mean, they're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Is if they don't pass it, it's a humiliation that hurts them politically. If they do pass it, a lot of these at-risk congressmen have to go home to their constituencies and explain why they said that insurance companies could charge the elderly, instead of 3 to 1, 5 to 1 now,
Yeah.
over younger people. So, what's the least of the two evils for them right now? Is it to be embarrassed that they didn't pass it, or have to defend a shitty bill to their constituencies? It's the
I
question. I think in the end they'll vote out of party loyalty. I
I don't.
think that it passes.
I think people want to keep their jobs, and I think it's going to affect a lot of their constituency.
Even
Uh,
if they limp across the finish line with this, it's still got to go to the Senate, and
yeah,
it's DOA there. So
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it gets out of the House. I think there are too many flaws. I mean, this there's not enough to it, and it doesn't address the overarching problems that they were bitching about for 8 years, and the problems that directly affect me. So it's like, well, how is this helping the generation that's paying for it? So
yeah,
like, I don't.
exactly.
That's the problem here.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, with that, this was kind of a chaotic episode. So everybody watching, we want to do something different tonight, and it was different, and I hope you enjoyed it. Frank, do you have any final thoughts on any of this?
Um. No, man. I think my leaving thought is like I like talking about solutions, but I think it's more important that we start getting out, like surfacing more of the stuff that's harder to talk about, in reference to these issues, because it's the stuff underneath that I think we're responding to. And how can we have tougher conversations, like what I'm saying, like where somebody says climate change doesn't exist, and how can we have that conversation actively? Let's find that kind of issue within our panel and have some more of those
Yeah.
conversations. Like, where is there that concrete divide that probably exists everywhere else, and how can we navigate through that? How can we get messy so other people don't have to get as messy? Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said in the beginning, feel free to leave your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to hear what you think of Trump's budget and how you think it's going to affect you. Like I said, you got something to say. It might win you a spot on the show. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Full Spectrum 17, and read our blog, Full Spectrum Channel, blogspot.com. And you know, until next week, think these issues over, and also, let us know what you think about anything else. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. Have a good one.
Cheers, cheers.